Okay, so I have heard that Zoom can hear, so hopefully that is true. And just chat if it is not. But I am Taryn, and I will be your host today. And Rob Morrison is on tech in the back, and Kathy Hedge is our Zoom leader. So hopefully everybody's all coordinated and everything goes swimmingly well. It's always interesting when I'm here, so please give grace. Okay. So today has many names and many things in my soul. So I started it with Fat Liberation was the title. And then I was like, body positivity. And then I was like, just general health and well-being and being a human in this world. So if you are a human body, welcome. And if you are struggling through, you are welcome here. And if you are thriving, you are very welcome here. Thank you so much. Please give an example. And we will all just keep trying our best with these human bodies that we are living with. Okay. So for the acknowledgement today, I decided that we would go ahead and acknowledge our bodies. So today we pause to honor the sacred vessels that carry our essence, our bodies. In this moment of reflection, let us acknowledge the marvel of our physical selves, the intricate systems that sustain us, the senses that connect us to the world, and the resilience that allows us to navigate life's journey. Let us recognize the diversity of our bodies gathered here, each own in its own unique shape, its own abilities, its experiences. Whether we move with ease or face challenges, whether we feel fully at home or struggle to accept ourselves, our bodies are deserving of reverence and care. So to integrate this today, I thought we could just take a moment. Do you guys remember the good old days when we used to welcome and greet each other? So first, do this on Zoom too. It's kind of cheap because if you put your video on, you can look at yourself. So I want you to kind of look down at your body and just kind of acknowledge what it has been through. So how many years it's been through, whether you've born children or not, or had injuries in sports, have you fought in a war, all these things. What has your body done for you? So we're gonna acknowledge our bodies. So take a moment to acknowledge our own bodies and give it some love. Yeah. Okay, now we're gonna look around. We have kind of a very minimal crowd here today, so be very generous in crossing the aisle. But I want you all to kind of go around and greet the other bodies. So one of the things that kind of changed my perspective on my body, and this is not even body, it's a nose thing. So my sister has a very cute narrow nose, and it's my grandmother's nose. And I've got a bulbous thing, and it's my grandfather's nose. I know it's my grandfather's nose. So I was kind of sexist, and I was like, why didn't I get the girl nose when I was little? And then COVID was kind of like this weird era where you got to cover up the thing I didn't like. And so I was like, yay, my eyes, I like it. And it was actually Chris Bailey, when I was making a comment like that, I kind of like this COVID mask thing. He was like, that is absurd. That is my friend Taryn's nose. That is her face. And I was like, that is the nicest thing I've ever heard. And I've liked my nose a lot better ever since. So I would like you to go around and greet each other just with, hey, that body houses the soul of my friend or my lover or my compatriot. So go around, greet each other, and honor each other's. And please do it on Zoom too. You can chat with each other and acknowledge the bodies that house your people.
Many people wonder where my secret lies. I'm not cute or built to suit a fashion model size. When I start to tell them, they think I'm telling lies. I say, it's in the reach of my arms, the span of my hips, the stride of my step, the curl of my lips. I'm a woman, phenomenally. I walk into a room just as cool as you please, and to a man the fellows stand or fall down on their knees. Then they swarm around me, a hive of honeybees. I say, it's the fire in my eyes, the flash of my teeth, the swing in my waist, the joy in my feet. I'm a woman, phenomenally. Men themselves have wondered what they see in me. They try so much, but they can't touch my inner mystery. When I try to show them, they say they still can't see. I say, it's in the arch of my back, the sun of my smile, the ride of my breasts, the grace of my style. I'm a woman, phenomenally. Now you understand just why my head's not bowed. I don't shout or jump about or have to talk real loud. When you see me passing, it ought to make you proud. I say, it's in the click of my heels, the bend of my hair, the palms of my hands, the need for my care. Because I'm a woman, phenomenally, phenomenal woman. All you women and me.
It's just as fabulous as it always was. So today I chose fat liberation because I, am a larger bodied human, and I actually have always been pretty comfortable with my body. It seems really weird, but when I was young, I was very large. So just an example of that is my brother was like a little beanpole with knobby knees and big ears, and I was plushy. So I knew from a very early age that I was built bigger than other people, just with that direct comparison that I was born into. And then in second grade, I remember distinctly trying to put my hands around my thigh. So it seems like it would be easy for a second grader, but my fingers didn't even touch. And I had a friend who could like overlap her fingers around her thigh. And it was like, that's crazy. Still, I was not deterred. I was not seeing that as a negative thing about my body. I was like, whoa. And it didn't make any sense to me until I met that person years and years and years later. And seen her around town, and she's about this tall. So her whole body is just a wildly different body shape than myself. I was called Thunder Thighs by my soccer team when we had, I was like, what do you call them, co-ed soccer team? So boys and girls played together at a young age. I know it's wildly inconceivable these days, but it was awesome. And the boys, made me a goalie. I was pretty hardy. I was built like an ogre before Shrek made that cool. So I actually loved it. I loved playing with the boys. I did not have a lot of girlfriends, and that did not bother me. But as I've aged, I feel like body positivity and social media has gone to dark places, and actually researching this has kind of put a damper on it. So I'm just going to go back to my sort of more autistic, analytical self and do my original why we should be positive about the miracles of our body, and then we're going to go into like social realms that can be kind of darker. So if you at any point feel like triggered or upset, you can always walk away, calm your body, and come back. But I think we will have definite time to discuss afterwards how we feel, and process together a little bit, and hopefully share some of your stories. Okay, so the analytical, biological side of human bodies. Okay, so we have DNA. We have approximately 25,000 genes. Genes code for proteins, right, directly. DNA codes for RNA, it builds a protein. And if you've seen structures of proteins, they are elaborately coiled, beautiful structures. Those 25,000 genes that directly code for a protein can also join together. So they're like Lego building blocks that are way, way cool. And they can clump together, be modified, eliminated, like parts of them can be eliminated to build something new. So they're thinking those 25,000 genes can build 100,000 different genes, or different proteins in our bodies. I think that is a vast underestimation. It just doesn't make sense to me. So if you take a protein and you change the pH of the fluid surrounding it just a little, it will change the shape of that protein. So it becomes like a different protein, and it functions in a slightly more efficient or a slightly less efficient way. So if you think of all the ions and chemicals inside of our bodies, that is a lot of diversity, and we all can mutate. So we have 9 billion people on this planet with all these little point mutations, meaning our proteins are slightly different than the people around us. Even siblings or closely related people, they're gonna have different protein structures than the next guy. Okay, so we've got all this diversity. And if you've ever looked at like chemical charts, you'll have like a certain activation energy, and it usually forms like a bell curve. There will be like optimal conditions where it's super, super high functioning, and then there will be like a drop off to functionality. And we have millions per second of these reactions, the chemical reactions happening in each one of our cells, and we have 37 trillion cells. Yeah. So, yeah, well, I mean, it's better than the national debt. We are doing more work than we're indebted, so that's good. For $1 for every chemical reaction, we've got it covered. So we are I feel stuck on sort of taking averages, or even expecting one body to look like the next, to process food the same way, to have same energy levels. It just seems wildly bizarre to accept sameness when we're so diverse. When we look at biology in an ecosystem, one of the greatest measures of whether that ecosystem is thriving and doing well is biological diversity. So why would we pare down what we expect a human body to look like into one structure that's kind of weirdly creepy? So if you've ever listened to a perfect race story, where they want one body type to look a certain way, and there's male and female, and they just have this perfect archetype, I find that crazy bizarre. So I don't like eating the same thing every day. I don't want all my people to look the same. I thought the Borg in Star Trek were the creepiest bad guy ever. So I like my body, and I like the biological diversity. Where it gets a little hairy is how we run science. So we do run medical practices off of averages. So you don't know what kind of medicine to give somebody except to base it off of what happens in the average body. And women were excluded from a lot of those studies for a very, very long time. And I'm sorry to say it, but women are complicated. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean a male body throughout the month is usually roughly the same. But a female, after they've passed into puberty, will menstruate, and their bodies are supposed to produce more estrogen at the beginning, then follicle stimulating hormone, luteinizing hormone, and then progesterone. So if you have ever tried to fast or diet following some of the books where a male is speaking, they don't really take into account a monthly cycle. And then you blow that up to there is a lot of life left in women after perimenopause and menopause, and we just don't have the data. So those studies haven't been done. And I find that really distressing when we talk as if we've already addressed those issues and we've already figured it out. So they have lots of books from the Manhattan Public Library, and I just left them out on the table out there so you could take snapshots and maybe go check them out yourself. But a lot of them talk with complete confidence that, let's say, bariatric surgery. So bariatric surgery, in a lot of the books, is touted as a universal good. Sure, you might face mortality, like death, people. You might face death, but at least you're not fat, and you don't have all of the things that are associated with being fat. So the statistics show that about above a 30% or 35%, I think is where the U goes up, body fat, you are more likely to die and develop diabetes, cardiovascular issues, and joint problems. So they focus a lot on the lower back and the knees. And I just think it has to be wrong. So just in my own personal context, I have known students who have had bariatric surgeries. I have had friends who have had bariatric surgeries. My sister-in-law, when they first got married and she had 2 young kids, her mom had had a gastric bypass. And she lost a lot of weight, was working out a lot, and died of heart failure. And you're more likely to die of heart failure. That's your body's inability to pump enough blood to your body to keep the tissues alive. And that is such a loss. It changes everything when the mom that you grew up with and knew you and knew your grandkids passes away and is no longer there for your kids to grow up. It just is shocking and kind of amazing. But I've never heard of anyone having long-term sustained weight loss and being happy. But the books say, like you can read it, the books say that people are happy. So you can share your stories. Maybe there are happy people. I talked to my respiratory therapist friend who says, I have met people who had gastric bypass and they are happy. They are happy with the results. So yay. So we can share those stories. I just find it very scary. And I do think that in the context of things, it matters why you're doing it. So with the diversity that happens in our bodies, so all the chemical reactions, I didn't even get to talking about lipid processing, and because we're not just made of proteins, right? We have to build our bodies out of lipids, and that's another crazy complex process, and carbohydrates. So we need them all in our bodies. And how we process them and take them in is going to be vastly different from one person to another. But it also turns out that we have a huge microbiome. So those 37 trillion cells, those are just us. But we've got trillions more of little guys. So all kinds of germs, well, germs, we should call them saviors, I don't know. They help us process nutrients and absorb those nutrients, convert chemicals. It's like a bioremediation plant in there. And we just don't even have that science. Like that's kind of a new era of exploration in human biology. But We can do studies when we think about the food that we eat. If we think that that food is good and nutritious for us, then we absorb more of the nutrients. We can test it with drugs too. Like, you can give somebody a medicine and put a little tag on it and track it through their bodies, and we will psychologically tease our system into believing that that thing is good for us and doing more with it. So knowing that we have all these little protein machines inside of our bodies carrying out all kinds of chemical reactions, keeping us well and alive, what do we want to feed our bodies? Do we want to feed them quality amino acids that are like good enough to build a tree out there? I don't really want to eat that tree, but but fruits, nuts, real things that come from the earth, and then maybe animals that eat those fruits and nuts and berries. That means that when we take those things into our bodies, they've already done a lot of the chemical processing, and those nutrients are accessible to us, and they're kind of built out of the same things that have been evolving for billions of years. So I can think body positivity when I'm eating a piece of broccoli, because I'm like, yeah, I'm building my tiny little machines out of good quality stuff. Like, we've got like a good quality old school metal car, not the little fiberglass pieces of disposable property that we have these days. Like, you're really building your machines with integrity. And it excites me. I think that autism really, it can be good. You're gonna build better machines, and you're gonna feel more energy and feel better in your body. In that social context, because you're eating something because you feel good about doing it, is a lot different than eating because somebody made you feel ashamed of your body. You're not gonna absorb anything. You're probably gonna get gassy and bloated, and a dramatic change in your diet might give you more problems, like diarrhea or something. And then you're not gonna go back to it because you're not excited about it, and you literally didn't absorb as much into your body. So the psychology does matter. I think getting excited about biological facts and statistics, and really critically thinking about those statistics and questioning experts. I know it sucks because I'm like, these people are so smart, but sometimes they say things that I just really don't believe are true. I actually love arguing. So I think innately in my body, I love it. It's made my mom really question having children at some points, but I love it. So I think let those things that you question really engage you with your own outcomes, your own medical treatments, and what you select to do. But there have been some negative things said about human bodies. So the reason that I actually got kind of really upset as we were researching is there are so many things that go wrong when especially female bodies are looked upon and they're obese or beyond a classic standard size. So it's difficult to get a plane ticket. Sometimes they make you buy like 2 plane seats instead of just 1, so it's really expensive. That's kind of minimal, it's not really harmful, but it is expensive and inconvenient. But finding clothes that fit your body, very difficult. Athletic wear is like 3 times as expensive to fit a body that's in the plus sizes. And then it got real dark. So there were cases where a woman wasn't believed in a rape case because who would rape a woman who was obese? It wasn't even rare. There were many, many cases where the case was had strong evidence with DNA, testimony, bruises, and it was thrown out because she was obese. And why would you want to have intercourse with a body of that size and shape? And I was like, what? that happens. And then there's implicit bias, and there's lots of statistics on this, that you're more likely to believe that a person interviewing for a position, or if you're a teacher, when you're writing a paper and you have a fat-bodied student and they ask for an extension or they turn in a paper, you're going to grade more harshly, and you're going to assume that they are unwell or lazy if they need an extension or something like that. You're less likely to extend with grace. And that hurts. So I didn't recognize the implicit bias in myself because I've always kind of loved my body. But then just researching like cellulite and what women will do to get rid of cellulite. Do you know that cellulite, like it's kind of like that cottage cheesy look in your thighs? It happens in 80 to 90% of human bodies. That's crazy to not like it, right? Like, that's pretty standard. And then stretch marks were really frowned upon. And again, it's just genetics, kind of like freckles is just one gene, whether you either form freckles or you don't. And why hate something that's just kind of just inherent about living in a human body? A stretch mark is just you grew faster than your skin could catch up. They're not bad. I actually think they're great. So, but it was just very interesting to look at some of the social media, and I don't recommend that. I recommend the books, but I don't recommend the social media part. So when I follow a lot of bigger women, there are some nasty, nasty comments about their body size. Like if they are a flexibility or a strength coach, they'll say, cover up your body. You know, it's like you can't wear bathing suits or anything like that. Just cover it up. You're losing. No one will ever want to marry you. Get off the internet, basically. And I was like, really? Are we here in 2024? And then I just had to give up after Bridgerton. So I don't know if anybody's a Bridgerton fan, but I watched season 3. I thought it was the best season ever. So Penelope Featherington, she's actually what we call a straight size person. So that means that she could go to Walmart and shop in the juniors section. She doesn't have to go to the plus size section. But they are so mean. So in the storyline, Penelope finally gets her lifelong love. She has been best friends with this person for her entire life. And he finally gets the picture and marries her. And there's some wonderful love scenes. And social media just lost its mind. So they said that somebody of her size and body shape would never attract a male like that this would never happen and it's not realistic. Who does not want to marry somebody who's been in love with them their entire freaking life? I do. So I did get off the internet, for sure. And I'm going to go back to my introverted analytical self and try to do what is right for my body, which there's so much to say on this topic, but I will say there are body positive places that you can go in this world that love to modify their gym equipment, the exercises to fit body types. So I joined CrossFit probably it was like the second lowest time of my life. It wasn't the number one lowest time of my life, but I honestly did it to stay sane. And it is one of those things that I think women especially can think about, why it's so hard for us to exercise in that kind of environment. So I don't know if anybody's been to a CrossFit gym, but it stinks. So, like, it's metal. Like, barbells smell bad. Like, they smell like metal. And then when you get sweat all over them, it's sweaty, wet metal. And then you get like a funk. So some people don't hose down. They wear the same gym clothes. They like tuck it in a gym bag, and then they go back and actually put it back on their bodies the next day. I was horrified at the like loud barbell sounds and people like lift that weight. And then you know what? I did it. And I got stronger and I felt good in my body. So I think that women being encouraged to do stinky, loud, kind of disgusting things, it helps preserve our muscle tone. It helps build stronger bones and maintain that. And there's a whole other thing, but I want time to discuss, of what we expect of aging bodies. So can we still lift those weight at 40, 50, 60, 70? Yes, we can. So we will try to talk and include your body positive and maybe, that made me think, body contemplation things. But there's so much more, like so many topics to discuss, so we'll leave it open and we'll pass the mic here and go online as well.